Title: Static. Written by Kaoi Deku. Wai-en-chan. A familiar timbre called, or more like sang, your name. You heard light footsteps pattering around the courtyard and knew your quiet solitude was not long for this world. You let out a tiny sigh of acceptance and then realized your instant mistake. Considering how adept that boy's hearing was, you might as well have screamed out your position. Wai-en-chan? It was merely seconds before his blonde mop of hair popped out from around the corner. There you are. His face lit up with a blithe smile and you politely returned it. Hi, Zenitsu. A lovely day, isn't it? He approached you with a bounce in his step and knelt by your side at the edge of the wash basin. But that was nearly as lovely as the flower in his garden. You eyed your surroundings for a moment in confusion. This side of the Wisteria estate truly housed too much shade to allow for natural growth. You were quite literally kneeling on a mix of patchy grass and dirt. It was then you caught him grinning directly at you and you couldn't help but chuckle. Not at the cleverness of his flirting, but at just how proud he looked for coming up with that line. He seemed encouraged by your reaction and found the nerves to speak again. So, what are you doing hiding all the way over here? Oh, I'm not hiding, just doing laundry. His lips curled into a tiny pout. It's not fitting for a lady to exert herself. He scuttled forward until he was almost shoulder to shoulder with you and rolled up his sleeves. May I? Well, I insist. Sure. You chewed your bottom lip as he grabbed a washboard and dunked his arms into the soapy water. Now, you immediately regretted throwing your delicates in among the kimonos with reckless abandon this morning. I think a good husband would never let his wife do all the chores by herself. He said it in a chipper sort of way, almost as if he found these mundane activities pleasant. You cast him a sidelong glance. There it was again. Zenitsu easily talked about marriage 10 times as frequently as any teens his age would ever met. If there were a record, he'd have definitely beaten it by now. It was curious to say at least, and you'd wager commitment was the only thing this boy wasn't afraid of. However, you'd caught onto the nuance in his tone as of late. These situations no longer felt awkward to you anymore, and you found yourself minding them less and less as time passed. Something about his demeanor didn't make you feel stifled as it had at first. There was nothing predatory about these conversations. No suggestive eyebrow jerk, no elbow nudge, and a wink. Zenitsu wasn't trying to box you in, trap you in an eternal game of cat and mouse. He was just a boy sharing his dreams with you. All he wanted was a simple life, to feel loved by someone, and in return, he vowed to dote on that someone like crazy. Zenitsu had always been very open about the dream, and it was easy to see why now. Why he behaved the way he did. He craved little moments like this, ones that paralleled his fantasy, where he could imagine settling down and starting a family he never had. It was the missing piece of him, the void he longed to fill, and the exact reason he got into the bad habit of violently shoving people into it, anyone he thought might fit. You had felt a hard pang of guilt the day this epiphany came to you, and as retribution, started treating him with the kindness he deserved in the first place. Besides, what harm could it do to play house with him sometimes? It's not as if his presence was any kind of great burden to you. To the contrary, if you were being brutally honest with yourself, you had to admit you'd grown to like the attention. The companionship and routine of it all seemed to calm him, even bring a golden twinkle back to his recurrently tearful eyes. You found yourself coaxing it nowadays, that little twinkle even expending effort to bring it to the surface. You didn't know why, you just liked seeing it. Tanjiro tried to run interference between you two when he could, constantly accusing him of laying things on too thick, but more often than not, you had to disagree. While yes, Zenith's voice held a potential endearment more sticky sweet than that kuromitsu you pour on wagashi. In your experience, he was rather shy in his courtship methods. He would follow you around and smile, but he rarely dug up the valor necessary to initiate conversations with you. When the group first arrived, here he offered you a beautiful forest in the most darling way possible, then giggled and ran away after you accepted it. Based on how bashful his reactions was, you feared you had just inadvertently accepted a marriage proposal or something. But it was nothing like that. Zenitsu hid no ulterior motives behind the act. He just wanted to give you something pretty. The poor thing even got poison ivy trying to pick it up for you. According to a cackling Inosuke, the blonde had skipped into the woods barefoot in his pajamas, humming a love song, so it was his own damn fault. After all the trouble, you would have at least allowed him to place it in your hair himself. But he didn't even think to ask for that honor. You felt your affection grew alongside your smile at the scene dance before your lashes. That's chivalrous of you. You gave a response to his offer and also to the memory. You think so? He locked eyes with you as if waiting for some sort of punchline. I do. When his sharp ears heard no trace of deceit in your voice, he blushed down at the tepid water. Your brows furrowed gently at his expression. He thought those words would make him smile for sure. Well, you'd be the first then. A certain sadness seemed to tighten in his throat, and it felt as though a veil of gloom had suddenly tainted the sunny outdoors. A somber silence filled the air for a moment before you passed him the outermost layer of your kimono. Beneath the water, your fingers brushed his in the process, and you instinctively yanked your hand back. Sorry. He turned his face away, but it didn't hide the hurt evident in his features. Oh, no, it's not that. You frowned regretfully. Zenitsu cleared his throat and nodded in understanding as you returned your hands to the basin. You know, Zenitsu, you smiled and waited until his gaze returned to you. I think you'll make a wife really happy someday. Finally, the sheepish smile made its appearance, and the blonde felt an immense warmth fill his heart before... Ah! You shrieked and ripped yourself away from the sudden pain. In the process, you stumbled backwards and kicked the wooden basin, causing a substantial amount of water to slosh out of it. Oh no, not again! Zenitsu called out in despair before rushing to your side. Are you okay? He fussed as you opened and closed your hands a few times, trying to relax the tense spasm he had inflicted onto your muscles. Ah, yikes, that was a bad one, you admitted with a wince, which you regretted as soon as you saw apologetic tears form in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Wayan-chan, I really am. He shakily reached out to examine the injury but stopped just short, afraid that touching you would result in another shock. For a moment, he just hovered there, looking like a lost puppy. I'll do the rest. Instead, he decided to try and make it up for it, returning to the laundry. Your hands must hurt too much now, right? It's the least I can do. Without missing a beat, the stuttering blonde lifted out one of the undergarments you had strategically hid from him earlier, and your mouth fell open. It took a few seconds for him to process what he was looking at before the color filled up his face. He dropped it immediately, and the fabric made a loud flap on the water surface. I'm sorry. He didn't even had the chance to feel embarrassed before the young man fled the scene. He must have known there was no way to make a comeback after that humiliating mistake. From across the courtyard, you heard his tenor voice ring out. I am a disgrace. You flopped onto your back with a deep sigh, still reeling from that encounter. It was painful in your hands, and also whatever area in the body that shame comes from. But somehow, you found yourself wanting to smile. Not more than a few minutes passed before Tanjiro's emerald and black howdy caught your eye. You sat back up and greeted him, noting the gauge and bandages he was carrying in his hands. Hey, YN. He eyed you up and down, obviously assessing you for collateral damage. Zenitsu told me to bring you this. He knelt and held them out to you. He was beside himself. Is everything okay? You took one look at Tanjiro, then at the clothes still hanging haphazardly from the wash basins. And it was now that the humor finally caught up with you, and you found yourself giggling uncontrollably.